Hello, and welcome to the Brutal Iron Gym podcast, where our goal is to cut through the BS and deliver the brutal truth about topics related to health and happiness. Today's podcast is number 1422. The topic is mindset. The title is, Are You Being Told You're Doing Too Much? And we're joined with my amazing and wonderful wife, Meredith.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, have you ever been told that you're doing too much?
I told Rob I wanted to do this podcast.
Yes.
Because Homegirl's on fire right now.
I think it's a great
Yeah.
topic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I don't know, I would be curious to know how many of you listening are told you're doing too much.
Mm-hmm.
By your friends, family, coworkers, just anyone. Are you being told you're doing too much? And if so, what do you do? What do you do about that? Right? So I mentioned this to Rob because I've told him in the past. Now, part of this is I have always been told that I'm doing too much.
Yeah.
As long as I know. My dad used to tell me all the time I was burning the candle at both ends. It's just something that I've always been told, and I don't know that I really understand it in its entirety. But I wanted to say that there's a difference between, or they're related at times too, but like knowing yourself and knowing that you're not doing enough, like that you're not doing too much.
Mm-hmm.
And when you are doing a lot and it's normal, but then you know yourself so well, you know your limits, you know what's you and what's not, and you can really recognize that. But then, conversely, doing too much and knowing you really are, and knowing you need to find a better balance and what you do there. And folks have told me now, families told me now I'm doing too much. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, God, is that ever going to stop?
Yeah.
Like,
and you've been hearing that for
stop
20
it.
plus years.
Like,
yeah.
Stop. Like, I know you care. Thank you very much. But if you haven't realized it, I tend to do a lot of things.
I think that's something that throws people off, is you and I, we like work.
Mm-hmm.
We like feeling productive.
And we like growing. And
yes.
we like
so we don't really like
dancing, and we like
I don't know. We're always looking for something to do that has meaning in our life.
Yeah.
And that does often look like we're taking on projects or taking on extra things that feel like a burden.
Mm-hmm.
But we're happier with that burden than to feel like I'm wasting my life. That is a much harder burden for me to accept than to feel like I tried to do a lot, so I'm kind of tired and I need to take a day of rest. I'd rather get to the point where I might need a day of rest than to always feel like I'm wasting my life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're very similar.
Yeah.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, thank goodness. Yeah, that's the only way this works.
Yeah. But also, like, there's a time, too, that if you know you're not doing too much, and it was a story that's related to the gym, that is why I wanted to share, because you can know yourself and advocate. It took a long time for me to advocate for myself with doctors in general. Like, at the doctors, with people. And I was often written off because they say you're doing too much. Oh, you're just doing too much. Oh, you just need to rest. You're just doing too much. And I say, no, I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
So there was this one time back early CrossFit days when I was getting into it at the beginning, not of 2000 whatever when it started, but my beginning of 2012, getting into CrossFit and starting. And it had been a year into CrossFit where I know I'm strong and I know I can do certain things, but at the same time I was teaching at a private school. I also had a part-time job, ad hoc. I was taking 2 classes at the time to advance my knowledge. Thinking of going back to school, so I was taking classes. I was coaching, and so everyone, rightfully so. Now, I'm an introvert, and I can manage my time well, so it was a lot, but it wasn't, quote, too much, right? It wasn't too much. But there was a time, and it was because I know myself so well, and because of my performance in the gym and tracking performance and having a large kinesthetic awareness from many years of dance, knowing how I move, knowing what's normal for my body to do, what's not normal for my body to do. And I was unable to drop under a clean. Like, I just yanked it up, and it felt heavy for being very light. And I'm like, maybe I am just tired, but I couldn't drop. It was like I didn't have a reaction.
Yeah.
I was so slow. And it was at the time when that gym was trying to build a team for the games.
Oh, man, what a time for that to hit.
Story of my life. So, the gym, they were getting the girls in the gym that, like, had potential to train together, and, well, I didn't get very far. So, I also, since I was teaching biology at the time, I asked my students, I grabbed a patellar tendon reflex hammer from my classroom supplies, and I sat on my desk and I gave it to one of my anatomy and physiology students at the time, and I was like, check my reflex. And sure enough, I mean, now I've kicked a resident in the balls before with my reflexes. Very embarrassing. So, like, very good reflexes, though.
Yes.
And she hit my patellar tendon. There was no reaction.
Ooh.
None.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay.
Well, that's not good.
This isn't good. But then I also was like, okay, teachable moment. What would cause this? Right?
Yeah.
Inside freaking out. Oh my God, what's happening?
Yeah.
And I'm like, damn, I knew I wasn't dropping under the bar, and I knew I felt tired. Now, this is at the time, it was kind of still early on, but I was coming home from work, and a homegirl doesn't nap.
Yeah, you do not nap.
I cannot.
No, I've known you for 3 years, and you've only napped, I think, twice, and one was you just face down on the floor because you were so exhausted.
Yeah, that was right after the week my mom moved down after her stroke.
Yes.
After what 2020 was. But can't nap, and relatively a night owl, you know. And I would just fall asleep at 5 and wake up the next day, and I would get, like, really hungry at times, and I was like, well, at the time it didn't even register because I was, like, in the, eating disorder cycle of binge eating, and it wasn't, like, really registering, and that was, like, that didn't seem like the problem at the time. But I remember, and, I was just super slow in the gym, and what did everyone tell me? You're doing too much. Yeah. So I went to the doctor, and I said, I want you to check my hormones. And he was like, okay. I was like, just run an endocrine panel. Something is wrong with my hormones. And I had known him for a while already, and he was like, okay, like, I'll do it because I know you, and you know yourself. And my PTH was very, very high. And he's like, all right, yes, something is wrong with your parathyroid. We're going to get you to a specialist, but I want you to get an MRI. You love those.
Yeah.
So I got an MRI within 24 hours. And this is significantly condensed for the podcast, but this was over weeks and over a couple months. And, then I started my mind, I started to have, like, suicidal thoughts, and I was like, whoa, wait a second. Like, this is not me.
Yeah.
This is not me. And I told my principal at the time, I said, I don't feel well. Something is wrong. I'm not myself. If I don't look as happy walking around the school, something's up, and I'm trying to figure it out.
Yeah. And
they were very understanding, I was very, very appreciative for. But turns out I had a tumor in my neck. One of my parathyroid glands had nearly tripled in size. And so there was a tumor there. And the fun facts about that, I was like the anomaly, because anyone that does get that tumor is like in 84. So they told me I had a 30% chance of feeling better after surgery.
That's trash.
Which was probably some of the scariest news I heard.
Yeah.
And but I did the surgery. It was like 5.5 hours. They took the tumor out, and the half-life was really fast. So I felt by like 10:30 that night, I was like, oh my God, I don't have to go to bed. And I kept feeling better and better, and I was like still awake that night. And it was like overnight, literally, that I felt better once that thyroid was...
That's amazing.
One of the parathyroids was taken out, and I still have a scar on my neck.
Yeah.
But the point being, I knew myself and advocated for myself. And it was because largely what had me realize something was wrong was the gym.
Yeah. And
it was training. And it was knowing how my body normally responds and how my body moves and what works for me, and that type of aspect where you're like, you know what, probably like I imagine a runner is just like, wow, I'm consistently a minute and a half under my pace, like what's going on?
Exactly. Yeah.
Something like that, where it's just like something where you can, number one, use your training as like a litmus test. Mm-hmm. So to trust that maybe something's going on.
Yeah.
Maybe something is there. And maybe you're not just doing too much, right? Mm-hmm. So that's like the one aspect of it, of, you're being told you're doing too much and you're like, no, and you advocate for yourself.
Yeah.
And the fact that it came out of training, which is also a benefit of training.
Well, I think that's really cool. Like, a lot of people do track what they do, or they have a pretty good idea of what their normals are.
Yeah.
So then when all of a sudden they see something changing from that is a good indicator that, like, crap, maybe there is some validity here that I need to look into something and kind of give this a thought. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so that's one more, like, serious point about being told you're doing too much. And it's like, there's a side of that where I want to strongly encourage that, because someone is telling you that, try, if you believe in yourself and no, I know me, like, don't try not to put off something because other people are telling you you're just doing too much.
Well, that's something I think, like, looking at that scope of it, I think one thing that helps you and I is we have each other. We have somebody else in our life that understands our goals, understands our capabilities. Like the things that we work for, we want. And although they do come at the trade-off expense of maybe, we're not making that extra phone call to a friend. Maybe we're not stopping and talking to somebody for 5 minutes when normally we would. Like, there are trade-offs, and sometimes people will see what you're trading, and they don't understand. They just see that. Like, okay, you're not doing this anymore. Maybe you're doing too much. It's like, well, maybe at this season of life, I do need to lessen my focus in those areas so I can achieve this one goal. And, there's just times in life where you have to double down on things because you want the end result faster.
Yeah.
If you continue to wait for everything to pan out and be perfectly scheduled, it'll never happen.
Right.
It's like that analogy, like people say, like, when's the best time to have kids? There's never. You just do it. Or like, when's the best time to, like, get married? You're never going to, like, that
one's tough. Yeah.
It's like there's things where you're not going to necessarily always get a clear answer, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. So if you're doing things that you believe are good for you, and you see,
when do when's the time benefit to go back to school? When's the time to move? When's the time to, maybe there's never, like, the perfect time, but
like, it's the time for you. So that's, the big thing is, like, knowing yourself. And I think having somebody, if you have a friend or somebody that's supportive and understands that, I think can help a lot as well.
Yeah, all of my really close friends outside of you know me and understand it and get it. Like, so we're the flip side of the coin is like, okay, know yourself enough so that, people tell you you're doing too much, but you're like trying to advocate for yourself and they dismiss you by saying that.
Yeah.
So one is being dismissed. Another one is just being judged.
Yeah.
Or like, it's coming from a place of maybe they're not getting what they want out of you, so they tell you you're doing too much.
That's true. Yeah, there's a lot of perspectives and angles that can be very hard.
So like now, the reason why we do, if you've listened to the last 2 podcasts, the reason why we do squat on Saturdays is that in this season, I am choosing to focus in other areas. You know, I want to go back to graduate school because I had gone and stopped, but I want to go back to graduate school. I'm working very hard at my job, you know, and I like working. We both like working.
Yeah.
We go to work and then we come home and we say relaxy work.
Yeah,
because we like keep working.
Sit and talk to each other while we work.
While we're also working, you know, just later.
Yes.
And like we like that.
Yeah.
And so I'm also, you know, studying, and I am trying to balance a lot, but it's the season where, yes, I know, outsider, I understand I am balancing a lot right now.
Yeah.
But please don't tell me I'm doing too much. That is dismissive of everything I'm working very hard for.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times it's hard, and I'm sure it's men and women and, you know, non-binaries that just, it's like everyone probably struggles with that and just doesn't say, maybe they don't speak up for themselves or they don't communicate clearly back, or you know, a lot of what I have learned with family too is if you're about to go into something that's going to take a huge chunk of time is, hey, I'm going to do this. And in this season of my life, I'm going to need the understanding for like 4 months.
Yeah,
I'm
communication
just going to need that.
helps a lot. You know, if you have somebody telling you, for example, hey, I think you're doing too much, you can say something back along the lines of, you know, I think I'm doing what's best for me. So I would appreciate your support in this. You know, if they want something from you, you can talk about what the, you know, a compromise might look like. Or one of the things that like bugs me when people say you're doing too much, what's the alternative? What am I supposed to do? Not want the want this? Like, I want this. I'm willing to put in the work. You know, like
you get told you're doing too much.
Yeah, and it's something like I don't feel like I complain very much or
you
often.
Never complain.
No, I don't think I do. And so if I feel like I'm overwhelmed and doing too much, that's something I'll manage. You know, and there's a podcast I'll have you guys listen to after we're done here on how to better manage that, like internally when you feel like you're getting a little overwhelmed. But it's doing too much based on whose perspective. You know, like I don't feel like I'm doing too much. I feel like I'm trying to crush amazing, awesome things and have a fun life and make the most of the one I get. Right. You know, so if somebody looks into my life and they're like, "Wow, you do a lot. Maybe you're doing too much." It's like I'm assuming that that's from their perspective. You know,
and more than likely out of love.
Yeah, they want you to take care of yourself, but they're looking at it from their perspective: is what am I willing to do? He's doing more than that. He's doing too much, and I'm like, no, we're different people. Yeah. So you do what you do. I'll do what I do.
Yeah.
And
cool. You do you, boo.
Yeah.
But it's also then to also, I mean, the phrase is great because it's like it has so many different facets. But it's also, you know, Rob and I are working very hard to reach goals. We have like specific goals we are reaching in like all areas of our life. And so we are going to go on vacation. Yeah. We're going to just be the two of us. Right? Like we always say, like, Christmas vacation is not Christmas vacation because
this is everything.
It's chaos. Yeah. So we are going to take time, but I am still going to study. I'm still going to read. He's still going to work, but it's a change of scenery. It's way less of being on a clock. You know, less meetings and
less appointments.
Right? Oh God, all the appointments. So it is. It's like I know. How do you say, like, I know I'm doing a lot. I'm not doing too much. But because I also know I am managing a lot, I know I need to take care of myself and take a break.
Yeah, right? And that's true. Is like, that's the other part of it is, like, am I doing too much? If you feel overwhelmed, how can you manage that? The option isn't, I'm just not going to do. Like, I'm going to do less. It's just, how do I manage what I'm doing better?
Right.
Yeah. And I noticed, like, I've talked about this in podcasts and stuff before, and it would be podcast 1064. If you want to check that out, it's a mindset podcast. titled "I'm Stressed and Exhausted. What Do I Do?" And,
Perfect.
Yes, in that one I talk about what's the bare minimum for training, what's the bare minimum for nutrition.
Yeah.
I even talk about how like I've found benefit. I don't know if I've ever told you this. It's not that drastic, but is like I have gone into the bathroom like on days where I would feel overwhelmed, like if I were at work or somewhere, and you just like close your eyes and you set a 2-minute timer and you just want to be like quiet for a second. It's amazing how much just quieting your mind or your brain or getting rid of sounds like stimuli, like how that can help. You know,
gosh,
and that's
yeah.
something I'll do is if I feel overwhelmed and like say for example my laptop is taking 1 full second to load when I needed it to load in half a second, and now I'm super ticked off and I can feel my blood pressure being crazy high.
Maybe that's a sign.
Yeah, it's like, oof, I need to take a second to breathe.
Yeah.
So I will do that sometimes where like I actually set a timer on my phone because I want to force myself to wait long enough, but I don't want to like lose all creativity and all productivity. So I'll just set like a 1-minute timer or a 2-minute timer and just kind of close my eyes and just breathe. And then I notice I come back to what I'm doing not so angry and with zero patience. So I remember one time I was talking to a nurse on the phone and we were trying to set up an appointment, and she was asking me questions like medical history questions, and I have a very extensive medical history. And I remember asking her at one point, I said, "What does this matter? Like what you're asking me? Can I just say no?" And so for example, she's like, "Name all the surgeries you've had." And I'm like, "I'm not doing that. That's ridiculous. That is way too long.
Yeah.
It's going to take forever." And actually, at one point, I just hung up on her because I was about to like just be rude, and I couldn't figure out how to get out of it without being rude, and that would have helped. So I just hung up on her. I think I sat there for like 30 seconds. Then I called her back and told her that my phone must have cut out. And it's like, yeah, whatever. It's a cell phone.
Yeah.
But I just needed to like hit pause for a second.
Yeah.
And those are the times when I know like I'm on edge.
Yeah.
And learning that about yourself and saying, I don't want to not go for what I'm going for. I want all of the things I want. But how do I manage the feeling of that, the stress, the overwhelmingness, like, and learning how to do small little things helps a lot.
Yeah, for sure. Time management, self-care, whatever self-care looks like for you.
Energy management, like trying to do the most important things when you have the best energy. So yeah, put you on the spot. Is there any little things you do? Like me hiding in a bathroom for 2 minutes.
Scream in a pillow?
There you go. You
No.
scream.
What do I do?
I think you just bury it.
I probably do. Comes out as eczema.
Oh no.
Yeah.
What
do I do? Oh, I've been recently putting my phone on Do Not Disturb.
That's a big one.
I've been doing that lately.
Good for you.
Yep. And that helps a lot. Because then I know, but I have it set for like emergencies where any, folks can get through, whatever. But it's like, I set my phone on Do Not Disturb. That has been significantly helpful. And that's mainly what I do during the day, where I really try to unwind to get some like good sound sleep. Yeah. Like if I sleep, I can handle anything the next day. If I don't, useless, right? And so that's it. I think that's been, but I have only started doing the like Do Not Disturb thing like recently.
I'm happy for you though. I think that's a really good, like a good idea, and that's what a lot of people could benefit from, because we underlyingly, if you have, say you have a couple things on your mind, and then you get a random text from somebody, you're like, oh, I gotta answer that, and it feels like another stress.
Yeah.
Then you get like a buzz about something, but it turns out to be some stupid notification you didn't need, so that distracts you as well. So you don't need more stimulus. Like you need to decrease stimulus.
And I've said too, because I also, with some anxiety from time to time, it's like the way I work, it's the way it's always been. If I sit down to do something, I will sit until it's done.
Yeah, you have an amazing,
I will sit.
You'll sit for like 10, 12, 14, 16 hours and crush
straight,
something.
I'll just do it.
And I'm like,
so
like
don't come up, which is, again, 2 podcasts ago, and I'm like, I wouldn't eat.
Yes.
So I'll also take care of ourselves that way. But I've started to like communicate to friends or family to say, I'm about to do this thing. you might not hear from me the rest of the day.
Yeah.
Because then that also manages expectations and boundaries and things like that. And I've been really trying to work on that this year.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's really, I mean, if someone were to say you're doing too much, you just kind of got to say, you know what, but it during this season of my life, yeah, but it's temporary, or it might be like this for a while, and that's okay. I'm okay with that. I'm willing to do this for myself and my future.
Yeah.
And I would appreciate your understanding.
Yeah, the support.
And the support, yeah. And then also to know yourself that, okay, I know I can handle a lot, but as soon as I start to feel burnout, I have actions to take. Or as soon as I realize something doesn't feel quite right in my body, it's not, I don't believe it's just because I'm overtired. Maybe I go to the doctor. It's like, it's so holistic in terms of you're doing too much from like an outside perspective. Mm-hmm. You may or may not be. You might be and might know it. You might be like, you might not know it, but I think, you know, if you're more than likely, if you're listening to the podcast, you get it.
Yeah. Yes.
Right.
These are proactive people.
They're very proactive people. So I'm talking to, I feel like, this subset that understands, which is why my advice is to, you know, set the boundary, to communicate, to communicate your goals, and to say, this is what I plan to do. This is really what I need from you to support me during this time. Yeah. Because, you know, hearing that time and time again isn't necessarily the best thing to hear either. No. Yeah. And, you know, something like my mother always says, a text only takes 20 seconds. You know, something only takes 5 seconds, or this only takes whatever. And I say, you know what? But then everyone is telling me that, and then you also collectively add that up, and then what am I giving up?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right? So it's like there's a balance, and you set some boundaries, or you say, hey, every couple of days this, or every other day that, or once a weekend that, and you just start to communicate that, and you only get one life.
Yep.
You get one life, and, you know, work on those boundaries, know yourself, advocate for yourself in every way possible. Advocate for yourself.
Yes.
And
absolutely.
I think that's just, it's so fresh in my mind that I wanted to do the podcast, because I've been getting it a lot lately from people telling me I'm doing too much.
Yep.
And so it's my PSA. But I know what my goals are, and I have always been relentless in them.
Yes. So
I've just happened to be getting a lot better in how I advocate and ask for what I need and clarify, and, you know, I think that's been helping a lot, but I want to share it with all my friends on the Brutal Iron Gym podcast to say, you know, it's okay to go for your goals. I don't want people to make you feel bad for doing that.
Very true, yes.
And be supportive. If you have someone in your life right now, maybe you've said it to them. Maybe someone has said it to you. And you could be sitting on it and say, man, I regret that, or, you know, I'm a little resentful about that. Say something.
Yeah, have a conversation about it.
Have a conversation about it.
Because it helps bring you closer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, say something. Ask for what you need. Stay relentless in your goals safely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we're always here to listen.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
yes.
Send an email, vent away, ask questions.
True.
All of the things.
Yes. Yeah. And then podcast 1064, the Mindset podcast titled, I'm Stressed and Exhausted, What Do I Do? That one helps explain how you can not lose nutrition and some type of physical movement while still trying to accomplish everything. So definitely check that one out. So that way you get to continue to push for how long you need. If you skip all of your food and you skip all your physical health, you're going to burn out a lot faster. Mm-hmm. So do yourself a little bit of a favor, take care of yourself a little bit so you can grind even harder and longer. So podcast 1064 will help you towards that. Awesome.
Well, thanks for listening to the Rambly.
Yeah.
Maybe it was a little rambly.
I think it was good. I mean, people who are being told they're doing too much are going to go through every single feeling that we just explained. And they're going to want some type of reassurance that they're doing okay and how they can do better, which is podcast 1064. Or if they're feeling like they're doing too much, like and they're starting to see consequences, to know that it's okay to go check that out. So how you do with your tumor.
Yeah.
So I think people are going to, if they're feeling this, if they're hearing this, they're going to identify with this.
Yeah.
Awesome.
You're not alone.
Yes, not at all. So always email us, brutalirongym@gmail.com, and we'll always help you out. Cool.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, if you do like our podcast, if you think it's helpful in your life, please consider sharing it to others. You can share it on social media. You can share it in a conversation with a friend. Just if you share it at all, that's great. It just helps people live healthier and happier lives. Thank you to the patrons of the podcast, people who financially support the podcast. The podcast is well over $1,000 a year for hosting costs. Give an hour to it every day, and we'd love to keep it for free, and the donations help towards that. So thank you very much. If you do want to give, you can do so at our website at www.brutalirongym.com. We have options for a one-time donation, monthly donation, yearly donation. Anything you can give is greatly appreciated. If you like the information we share in our podcast, you can find more from us on our social media channels on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube under the name Brutal Iron Gym. If you have any questions, feedback, suggestions, anything that you want to know, let us know at our email, brutalirongym@gmail.com. Well, thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
Yes. And then, as always, I hope this was helpful, and thank you for listening.